Welcome to the Thinking Class in Session. This is our pilot episode. I am Professor Ealy, Dr. Ealy, Kristoffer, Chris by itself, Kit, whatever you want to call me. And this is our experimental pilot episode, an extension of my Substack, but just an extension of everything we do at Nefarious Media Network. So this is going to be our political countdown show where we talk about issues of the week. Some of the issues are going to be probably more important than the others. We're just talking about what's newsworthy. We're not approaching this from what's the most important point of view, more so from what's the most topical, and trying to engage with listeners, readers of the Thinking Class, watchers of the Thinking Class, all that stuff. So anyway, class is in session. And with that, let me introduce you to Ray Williams. He's going to be the moderator of these shows. And Lyn is our first special guest. Lyn, interesting enough, so this is news to you also, Ray, but originally when I wanted to do a political show, I wanted to do a show with Lyn. I would say this was probably like 2022, 23. I don't know if you remember, Lyn, but yeah, I was like wanting to do the show. Yeah. So yeah, it was like, and I was like, I just didn't have the equipment and the setup, and then all the stuff start happening with me all at once, with me needing brain surgery, and then like my vision start just going haywire and all this other kind of thing. But now we're here. So Lyn is going to be the first rotating host. Hopefully she'll want to come back and do this again. But yeah, so what are today's topics, Ray?
All right, so we got a plethora of topics, Professor, ranging from the ongoing case with Nolan Wells and how Officer Tatum viewpoints have been skewing how people feel about Nolan Wells. We've also going to be talking about Cori Bush and her recent defeat and how this is much more different than her last defeat. And we're also going to touch upon where in the world is Mitch McConnell. But to start off, we're going to go ahead and talk about this brother, Chef Ken. So if you guys are not familiar with Chef Ken, a.k.a. Wilkinson Sejour, is a Haitian-Bahamian founder of Miami's Chef Creole restaurants. And the reason why he's one of our topics today is because he voted for Donald Trump in 2024, even after the debacle that was the Trump-Harris debate, the only Trump-Harris debate. Now he says he regrets his vote as Trump's immigration policies affect his customers, workers, community, and business. So, Professor Chris, you talked about it in one of your more recent pieces that you and Chef Ken both watched the Trump-Harris debate, but only one of you really understood what was going on. So what exactly did Ken think Trump was going to do when he was talking about mass deportations?
Okay, so the way I described it in my article with Chef Ken Wilkerson, what's his name? Wilkerson Sejour?
Wilkinson.
Is that his name?
Sejour, yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, with Chef Ken, I described him as like one of those, like, I equated it to a high school girl who's got a crush on the bad boy in high school, right? So like in the bad boy in high school dates all the nice girls, right? And every single nice girl thinks that they're going to be the one to reach the bad boy in his heartstrings and be the one to change the bad boy, be the person that's going to be, hey, I can reach him, or I can turn him into a good guy, or I could turn him into a good person and all that. And then they date him and they treat the girl like they treat everybody else, because the bad boy doesn't necessarily want to change. The bad boy wants to continue doing the stuff that they want to do. So I think with a lot of immigrants, when they heard Donald Trump talk and say things like the Haitians are eating the cats and eating the dogs and all that kind of fuckery, I think they heard, well, he's talking about those Haitians. He's not talking about me. He treated those girls like that. He's not going to treat me like that. And I think that's a lot of immigrant sentiment. I don't want to stereotype every immigrant that's what they think, because I've met plenty of immigrants that know Donald Trump is the piece of crap that he is. But you do get those that they come to the country, they come from poor countries and countries that have less than the developed country that is the United States of America, and they want to assimilate and be a part of Americana. And I think one of the ways they think they can do that by is endearing themselves to the president. Donald Trump is the president. So I think they're doing their patriotic duty by voting for this guy. Because I think one of the things that Chef Ken said was that Trump sold to him this idea of him being a businessman, which is funny because he said all that other stuff, and the only thing that this guy seemed to have heard is the businessman. So I think that's where we are at with these people. And I will also say this, and then I'll throw it to Lyn. I think that the one thing I will give Chef Ken is he did say he regretted his vote. That is not something I see a lot of Trump voters say. I've seen Trump voters be like, yeah, I lost my family farm that was in the family for 150 years. And then when they're asked if they regret their vote, they're like, no, I still think my vote was good. I think Kamala would have been worse and all this other crap. And their world is like imploding behind them, right? I've seen guys lose their wives. Like their wives get deported, their husbands get deported, and when they're asked if they regret their vote, they're like, oh no, I think I did the right thing. So at least Ken did that. Should we forgive Ken? The way I approach this is, I don't know. Forgiveness is just not something I'm willing to give out to someone like him. I don't think he's unredeemable, but I do think that he's got to make himself available to Democrats. I think he's got to stump for Democrats and get people to vote. Always remind people that he fucked up, and just like register voters in 2026 and 2028. And that will be the start of your atonement. And that's my opinion. So I'll throw it to you, Lyn, for your opinion on Chef Ken.
Actually, I love the comparison between Chef Ken and kind of this naive high school girl, because I do agree. I feel like during the election, particularly during the debates, I wonder, particularly because I think this is becoming more of a thing where people are starting to come forward and say that they regret their vote. I believe that a lot of people had very tunnel vision. I think it has a lot to do with identity, how people show up in the world. So based on your identity, if you, as me, I see myself as a Black person first and then a woman, I think we have to have a conversations around identity and how people see themselves first. Maybe this man in particular, Chef Ken, saw himself as a business person first. And so therefore that was what was more important, or what he put more emphasis on his identity. Because really, I don't understand. I don't know what he heard that we didn't hear. He definitely he definitely made some striking charges against Haitian people and said some really cruel things. And it's like, how does that fall on deaf ears for you? I don't know how he was able to ignore all of that and still vote in favor of Donald Trump. So that's very interesting to me. But I think too, I think it would serve us, a lot of us, to understand like really the mindset of people. And I do believe that part of it is around identity and how people see themselves and how they show up in the world. As far as forgiveness, that one I have mixed feelings on. There's a part of me that's like, you kind of get what you voted for this, you kind of get what you get. I don't know how you felt like you were exempt. And I also think people need to have broader definitions or understanding and personal meanings of some of this stuff, especially during election time, so we can get a better sense of like, what is it that you're understanding? The fact that was lost on him during the election is just very interesting to me. But also just going back to forgiveness, I don't know. I do believe that when people are impacted personally, professionally, that people do have, they do change their perspective and they do see where they dropped the ball. And I believe, none of us are above correction. So there's some validity, and I think there's some honor and value in him seeing his era and voting in favor of Donald Trump. But as far as forgiveness, I'm a forgiver, but this one I have mixed feelings.
Because first of all, let me say this: the people in the YouTube comments of this video were killing this guy, man. Like, no one was being nice to him. So overall, it's got like 2.1 million views. It might have 3 million views by this point, because I think the video itself had like a few thousand views. But then when you look at the totality of views that this video's gotten, it's been in the millions, like 2 million. And people were going in on this guy. The only thing with him that differs from other people is he's the only person, and if you know of other people, Lyn or Ray, let me know, but he's the only one I've ever heard say, I regret my vote.
No,
I can work with that.
Yeah, no, I've heard more people who have voted for Trump and have been impacted by deportation, the mass deportation. I heard a lot of them come forward and say, I regret this. I didn't give a lot of thought to this, or for whatever reason they felt like they were the exception. So I don't know. I guess for me, I guess for me as a person of color, that's the part where I'm confused, and there's the disconnect of where did you not understand that, or where did you feel like you were exempt from this? I guess that's the part where I'm confused with that population of people who did vote for him that are particularly people of color.
Yeah, I'll just chime in real quick. I've heard like a few people kind of go back and say that they regretted their votes, because it wasn't just this gentleman, but also there were Latinos for Trump down in Florida, the Venezuelans who were like, oh, TPS, oh no. And so you also had the Ethiopians in Minnesota. I think there were a lot of people, but I think that's just the kind of the cult of personality that Trump is. Like, he gets people wound up. Even like we all know how he can have the ability to stretch the truth, to put it mildly. And even when he tells the truth, like people don't really get it. Like you said, not only with the debate, but also with the Republican National Convention with mass deportation signs now. Like, it's like I don't see how you feel like you're the exception.
Right.
This motherfucker said every chance he got that he was going to do the biggest mass deportation thing in history, bigger than any president. That was, and I don't think he still accomplished that. I still think Obama's got him a little bit, but the fact that that was his goal, and he said this multiple times on multiple platforms, and you still heard he's going to help my business. There's a mental disconnect there. There's something going on. Go ahead.
No, I think part of that mental disconnect is that people just didn't believe him. I don't think that people believed him. And I think people may not have been privy to his first administration, like, and how he targeted immigrants, particularly. I worked in the immigrant rights space during that time, and I saw the policies and I saw how it impacts the community. So I'm just, I guess for me, maybe it's just a lapse in people understanding, you know, the policies back then. I think a lot of people, especially in the immigrant rights community and those who are on the front line fighting for the extension of those rights, they understood. I guess a lot of people, because they didn't feel the weight of it in the first administration, possibly, that they did not believe it. And I also think because it was, I guess what he was pushing, it may have seemed so unrealistic, like, oh, he's not going to do that. I think people really believe that. And they just was in, like, you know, he's just, you know, this is his way of courting people who have issues with immigrants or something to that effect. But I believed him completely.
I believe him too. Yeah. Like, I think for a lot of people, especially the immigrant community, and I don't want to target just one group of immigrants, but immigrants in general, they sometimes believe that capitalism will shield them from whatever political power is there, right? Because we're taught that money is like everything, right? Like, even when Ice Cube came up with this plan for Black America, he talked about all this money and economical stuff, never about like political power and who's in charge of things. And when you hear guys like Boyce Watkins and Umar Johnson, their biggest talking points to Black people specifically is getting your money up and capitalism and all this other shit. But capitalism is nothing if the wrong people are in power. And if the people that are in power that can snatch up your American dream, you know, like they're like, these people, they're working hard, earning money legally, and Trump and JD Vance and those people, they don't care about that. They're like, get out of our country. You do not belong here. That is the mindset of those people.
You're absolutely right. But it goes back to identity. If you see yourself as status first, you know, I'm a rich Black person, then you see it as status first, and then your race later. You know, so again, it goes back to this, and then it seems like you're kind of immune because you've been able, or you have the means to kind of buy yourself into these spaces, when in reality you're not necessarily accepted just because you have the capital.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's just, this is a live and learn thing. So my final verdict on Chef Ken is, you got to do the work, man. If you regret your vote, show that you regret your vote. Get people registered. Get people voting for Democrats in the midterms. Stump for somebody in the general election, and you know, I don't know if I'll forgive you, but you know, I'll give you an attaboy. All right. Then what are your closing thoughts on this? So, all right, we hear you, Buzzer. Go ahead. All right, what do you got, Ray?
All right. Oh, well, I wanted to maybe throw the final word for Lynn, and then we'll move on.
No, I mean, I forgive. I'm not going to withhold my forgiveness, but I do feel like he needs to work harder. I agree the next time around.
Yeah.
I'll forgive you, brother. I won't forget, though. I'm keeping my own. I'm keeping my eye out.
What we got? What's next on the docket?
All right. Well, coming up next, as Brother Byron Allen would say, uh, where in the world is Mitch McConnell? We've been hearing for weeks, months. Where has this brother been? He, for some reason, we've been hearing that he had a medical emergency at home. He was rushed to the hospital. Then we get word from his social media that he's okay, and he sends out this now world renowned and infamous photo that has been photoshopped to the gods lately and AI'd to the gods. So, Brother Chris, you wrote in a recent article essentially asking whether Mitch McConnell is alive. We have subsequently received evidence suggesting that Mitch McConnell is, in fact, not currently haunting the Capitol. So, are you satisfied with this bit of information?
Here's the thing, man. Well, do you want to take this one first, Lyn?
No.
Okay, I will be the lamb to slaughter on this topic. Okay, so here's the thing with this, right? So I had one aunt, my Jamaican aunt. She asked me about Mitch McConnell, and she said, "Man, I'm dead." You know, that was her words. "I'm dead." You know, and I had another aunt, country aunt. She said, "Now, Chris, you know that old man is dead." As a political scientist, as a journalist, I can't run with conspiracy theories, you know, that goes against like my journalistic integrity. But if I were going to choose, I would say this guy, if I was going to choose between entertainment mediums, what Mitch McConnell is, I would say he's closer to Blockbuster Video than he is to Netflix. That's it's just, this is just outrageous, man. It was so outrageous that when approached to write about this initially, I was like, what do I say about this? Like, I don't know what this guy is, right? And then the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, people are getting mad at him. It's like, you should have forced this guy to say he's alive. I was like, I don't know the legal precedent for him to do anything, man. Like, because in Kentucky, they already set it up to where, because in a lot of states, when somebody dies or becomes incapacitated in office, the governor picks who their successor is. Kentucky, knowing Beshear was going to become the governor, they set it up to where there's a whole process to get rid of Mitch McConnell. And that's what we're dealing with in Kentucky. So, and there's arguments saying that the longer this guy is just not there to vote on things, the better it is for Democrats. But there's also another argument to say that he's going to wait until the deadline, which I think is coming up in a few days, actually. And then someone's going to say he's dead out of the blue. And then they're going to like try to run a Republican real quick to beat him. It's Kentucky. So just because it's Kentucky, though, I also want to say this. It's not a guarantee that a Republican will magically win, because Kentucky does have a Democrat governor, but the Democrat governor was running against a black guy that was completely bonkers. And I often think that when it comes to those kind of matters, white people are so racist that even if you are a Republican that's in line with everything they think, if they don't think you should hold that position of power, they won't vote for you. And I've seen this time and time again with Republicans. They did this with that dude Robinson that was running in North Carolina. They've done it. They just recently did it with that one brother who was a the guy that he was running against had dropped out.
I heard about that.
Out, and he still fucking won. The guy that dropped out of the race won, like, against this black guy. I was like, my God, how racist can you be? Like this, and this black guy said he was going to do everything. What's the guy's name? The governor. I think his name was it was Amir. I think Amir was his last name. Governor. And he was running for congressman. But yeah, they didn't vote for this guy. So I think the fear with Mitch McConnell is that Mitch McConnell, if they take him out of that seat, there is a chance, albeit a small chance, still a chance a Democrat could take that seat, which means less power for Republicans. So that's my kind of take on it. And I can't say if Mitch McConnell is alive or dead. But like I said, closer to Blockbuster than he is to Netflix, closer to a SkyTel pager than he is to a iPhone. Now those are my thoughts. Go ahead, Lyn. What's going on with Mitch McConnell?
I don't know. I really do not know. I don't know what to think about Mitch. I think the whole thing is just weird. And I think I'm just kind of just like everyone else, the rest of the world, just kind of waiting for some type of something. I don't know, honestly. Yeah, I think it's just been weird. It's just, yeah. But I do feel like they may be holding on to that seat to replace him with another Republican. But as far as his whereabouts, whether or not he's alive or unalive, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's such a weird, awkward situation because I don't even know what the legal recourse is for Andy Beshear, for Democrats, period. Like, how do you deal with something like this? Because I do believe there are people in Kentucky that know what's going on with Mitch McConnell. His wife, Elaine Chao, I think that's her name. She knows what's going on with this guy. And to me, it's easier to prove that you are alive than it is to prove that you're dead. And the fact that they're not even given any solid proof that people believe that he's alive is just very, very questionable. And I really go ahead.
No, I feel like my first thought about this, I don't know that he's dead. He might be incapacitated. He may not be, he may not have capacity to work in, politics right now. And he may be terminal. I don't know that I believe he's dead. I would say that.
Right,
but
right. Yeah.
I mean, this is not really news either. It's kind of like anything around his health and medical has been just kind of very strange. There's been a lot of secrecy around that as well, which is weird, at least to me.
Well, Brother Chris, you did mention,
go ahead,
what recourse the Democrats and specifically the Kentucky governor Andy Beshear have. I hear some people just mentioning they shouldn't do anything because you still got that means you got a vote advantage in the Senate and things coming up. I know right now, I believe the Senate is on recess right now, but what do you say to that? And then we could throw it to you afterwards, Sister Lyn. Like, what do you say to just not doing anything and just keeping that advantage because the Senate votes are pretty slim already. So
yeah,
what do you say to those who are saying don't do anything?
I think you have to kind of just let it play out. Unfortunately, you just kind of have to like just. I do think there's some value in saying just don't do anything, because they are at a vote disadvantage. Mitch McConnell is gonna, if there's life in him, and if he ever can muster up the strength to vote, he will always vote in line with the Republican Party. So if you're a Democrat, you're not liking the fact that he's incapacitated, but you're appreciating the Republicans getting one less vote. And I think that I think in the future there are going to have to be some hard rules placed on what happens if something like this happens, because it's just way too weird. I've never seen like called a little for your information for you guys. I called Kentucky to see if I could get any word on like formal word on Mitch McConnell. Like nobody said anything to me. Nobody. So I don't know what that means. Like I couldn't get any kind of like denial, any kind of confirmation. Just people just like putting me on hold forever, and then sometimes someone would pick me off a hold. Sometimes people would just hang up on me, and it just got to the point where it's like, okay, this is just too beyond weird. And some people said, like I got a voicemail one time. And it's just you're not finding anything out. Yeah, unfortunately, I think the next step is to just let it play out. And, vote in Democrats in November. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's my stance. Just kind of wait this thing out and just see what happens. That's kind of where I do think it's extremely weird.
Yeah,
it's just bizarre. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, I was going to pick up because we saw something with another senator who it was very definitive of whether he was still amongst the land of the living or not, and that was with Senator Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina, where it was immediately relayed that the brother had a heart attack, he passed away, but with him being in South Carolina and with the governor being Republican, that they were able to throw in a replacement, that being Lindsey Graham's sister, who has no prior public service experience. So, what do you say? I guess we can always go back and forth with Republicans saying one thing and then saying another when they have the advantage, i.e., we're not supposed to vote in an election year to replace a Supreme Court justice. Until it's our turn, then we'll go ahead and vote in a Supreme Court justice. So
they're always going to do nefarious stuff like that. That's what Republicans, that you could count on Republicans doing that. I think with I think South Carolina is an opportunity for a pickup for Democrats. The person that's running on the Democratic ticket, I think her name is Dr. Annie. Is it Annie something? Dr. Annie, I think her name is. But she's a doctor. She's worked with lower income families, all that. She's superb. I threw $50 at her last week. I think that if there's ever a chance for a Democratic pickup, that's one of the seats you want to look at, because I do think you could get people, because Mitch McConnell, people didn't love him in South Carolina. People voted for him out of obligation. People voted for him partly because Trump told them to, partly because they just didn't want to see a Democrat win. And I think that you can change that kind of mindset out there if you get a good candidate. And I think that Dr. Annie, I'm blanking on her name. I wrote a whole article about her, and I'm blanking on her name. But
Annie Andrews.
Annie Andrews, that's her name. Dr. Annie Andrews. You could get her to if she can win, she's a winnable candidate. And she's running against Lindsey Graham's Know Nothing sister. And I think she will be a formidable opponent. So that's my whole thoughts on that process. And RIP to Lindsey Graham. I wasn't a fan of his at all, but death is death, and hopefully he's answering to his higher power.
Indeed.
I definitely second that. I do believe that we need to look at the laws regarding when politicians are sick or death, incapacitation. Like, I think we need to look at those things because there are real issues and people are impacted by that. And so I think that is something to give more attention to in the future because it's starting to become more of an issue. I mean, we even seen it with Biden. There was questions around his capacity when he was running during his time in office. So I do think that there needs to be some more attention in that area.
Right, yeah. And with Biden, he his cancer has recently spread to, according to Hunter Biden. So well wishes to him. But yeah, I do think that politicians should definitely step down willingly instead of like this whole thing that we're dealing with right now. All right, so time is up on that topic.
Indeed,
there it is.
with about a second to spare, Brother Chris.
All right, cool. So let's move on to the next topic. And RIP again, Lindsey Graham. RIP ? Mitch McConnell. Live well. I don't know what to say to Mitch McConnell. I don't know what the fuck he is. I just know he ain't talking. So whatever Mitch McConnell is, good wishes to him.
Yes.
Or bad wishes.
If you're still with us, Mitch McConnell, get back to work. Just like on our wrestling podcast, we always talk about Darby Allin getting off of Mount Everest. Get back to work, Mitch McConnell. All right, or not get back to work.
It's okay. He got to step down.
Yeah, he's got to step down. That's the bottom line, man. He's got to go.
Indeed.
All right. So, what's our next topic?
Well, let's
on to the
shift. Indeed. Let's shift on over. So, you guys were just mentioning about a possible primary and a possible showdown for the South Carolina Senate seat in the fall. Well, we got a showdown in a Democratic primary recently in Missouri, and it did not fare well for our girl Cori Bush. Cori Bush, who is very progressive, very anti-Israel as far as their military campaign within Palestine goes. She faced the same opponent back when she was running for re-election in the House of Representatives. She lost to Cori Bush she lost to Wesley Bell, I should say, back then by 7 percentage points. This time, it did not fare so well again. Even worse of a loss for former Representative Cori Bush, as she lost to Wesley Bell 59 to 37%. So again, last time she faced off against them, she lost by 7 percentage points. This time she lost by 22 percentage points. So, Brother Chris, your academic terminology, the technical political science terminology that you use for such a loss was the term mollywopped. Explain your choice of words, my brother.
Okay, all right. So Cori Bush, let me just get this out of the way because people like coming for me. If I say one thing, oh, you're a corporate Democratic shill, fuck you, man, you suck, or I get accused of being everything except a child of God on these platforms and my writing, all that stuff. What I will say about Cori Bush though is even though I like Cori Bush, I sometimes got the impression that she was not trying to win an election. I just got that impression from her because I saw how she ran a few years ago and she lost to the same guy. What's his name again? Blanking on it.
Wesley Bell.
Wesley Bell. Yeah, Wesley Bell. Wesley Bell. He's a person that allegedly has accepted AIPAC money, has done all the evil things that a progressive Democrat shouldn't do. And he also won. And he also won by a double-digit margin this time. And I do think a lot of weight is given to AIPAC money. I think money in politics is important. I worked for people running for Congress before, and you can never have enough money. Money is going to keep you alive in politics. It's not going to guarantee you a win, though. And my argument with Cori Bush was not so much that she was bad for Missouri or anything like that. Was that I thought she was a person that was trying to win an election for the internet. I thought she was trying to win an election for a national audience and not really a local audience. And I saw the same thing going on with Nina Turner when she was running in Ohio against Chantel Brown a couple of years ago. And I think when you are running for Congress, you can never lose track of the fact that you are running for the people in that area. Right. Another thing that she did was she voted for a lot of stuff that the people of her district wanted. And she would vote against these issues because the bill had some like money to Israel in it and stuff like that. And I think that offended a lot of people, a lot of the voting population in her district. And I just, even though I was rooting for her, I just never got the impression that she was wanting to win. It sounded more like she was auditioning for like an internet show, like a TYT show, or like just something online that wasn't winning office. That was what I got from her, and I think you can blame AIPAC money, but I don't think that's the case in this situation. I think she ran a bad race. I don't think she learned anything from her loss a couple of years ago. And I think she paid the price. And here's another thing too that I also want to say before we throw it to Lyn. There were progressives that won all over the country. It's not like progressives didn't win anything. Mayor Mamdani in New York, he's a progressive and he won. AOC, when she ran for re-election a couple of years ago, she won. So it's like, how much can you blame this AIPAC money? You have to take some responsibility for the campaign you run at the end of the day. And I'll speak a little bit more on AIPAC money in a little while, but that's my thoughts on Cori Bush for right now. Did you follow this race at all, Lyn?
Not a lot, but I do think that this race is very similar to a lot of other races. I think you make a good point about, the distinction between social media constituents versus your local people. I think that that's very important. I think social media has somewhat, I think it has confused a lot of politicians in particular, because it's a tool, but you still have to do the work. You still have to be mindful of your constituents, and you also have to be able to talk to the masses and not anyone in particular. And I think we just seen that as well, even in the LA mayoral race, like with the mayor's race.
Yeah,
we've seen that same thing kind of happen. So it's not something that's new. I think it's something that is it's happening, as more popular now, but I think now we're also seeing that the old school way works. You have to go and you have to show your face to people. You have to put, you really have to be mindful of your platform. You really have to, work for your vote, and social media is just not going to cut it. So it's
and someone like a Rashida Tlaib, she can run on Israel or run like opposed to Israel and be a pro Palestinian person. And she could be fine because she lives in a district where the population is mostly Palestinians and Arab Americans and things of that nature. Cori Bush is in a district where people are, it's a working class district, and those people care about jobs. They care about they care about like the price of things and all of that. And it's not that you have to, because when people hear me say this, they always think, oh, I'm telling you not to care about other people. You can care about these other issues, especially you could care about foreign policy, but you have to understand that you are running a race for those people in your district, and some of those people are just not going to care about that. And it's they're not going to not care about it because they don't care about it. They're not going to care about it because they do not watch the news like we watch the news, and you can't make an issue important to somebody. That's just not something you can kind of force. You can introduce them to an issue and kind of steer their influence. When people are broke and jobs are being lost, and the community needs money, and you're voting on bills that go against that, you're not going to be winning any races. And I thought that her opponent, I thought he, like, for all of his faults, I thought he was a very charismatic guy on the campaign trail. I thought he kind of knew the district a little bit better than Cori Bush did. Cori Bush, every time I saw Cori Bush, she was on like a news show. She was on, I saw her on Larry Daniel Favors. I saw her on it might have been Francis Fiorentino. It could have been a few of those like progressive left-wing shows. Again, if you want to do one of those shows, do one of those shows. But if you're trying to win an office, you got to focus on the people in your district. And that's just how it's got to be. So,
but that's classic of Democrats. It's so classic of Democrats. To me, it's just that's the classic approach. And I feel like, at what point do you examine this and really realize that it doesn't work? It just doesn't work. And I feel like this is something very classic in the Democratic Party. It's like, okay, well, if you lost the first time, you will want to strategize and figure out where you went wrong. And then I think also there's a lot of conversation about trying to get the young people's vote. But at the end of the day, there are seniors in your community. There are other populations in the community that you have to be mindful of, and you have to campaign to those people. And you also have to take into account what their concerns are, and what are their immediate needs. And to me, that's where Democrats as a whole are really failing, and have been failing in the last, in my opinion, nearly 10 years.
Right. Yeah. I think, and the thing with being the young people, young people don't vote the way old people do. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. Old people are going to vote. The older you get, the more inclined you are to vote. I
Right.
think what happens with old people, they are at home most of the day. They are doing nothing but watching television. Some of these old people are getting radicalized by Fox News. Some people are watching like MSNBC or MS Now as it's called, or CNN or whatever they're watching. They're reading a newspaper, reading magazines, surfing the internet, doing all this stuff. So they're able to take in a lot more information than young people who really, when you're young, you're, at least when I was young, I wasn't really thinking about politics the way I should probably be thinking about politics. And I was a political science major. I was still, I was, I was doing the bare bones basics, but it's just like I had other things going on. So you have to always keep that in mind when you are running for office. A good
Yeah.
for Democrats getting young people like to vote for you. It's saying like would be like if like old people, 65% of old people are going to vote, something like that, 65, 75, 8. That's how old people vote. If for Democrats, if you get 20% young people vote, and that's like a good thing for Democrats. If you get 20% of young people instead of like 15% or 8% or something like that, because young people just don't typically vote. And when they do vote, even in elections where young people make the difference, they're still not voting as much as senior citizens. And when I say young people, I'm talking about people like under like 40 and under. I'm not even talking about like super young. I'm talking about like people even my age, like people that are 45. A lot of those people don't pay attention to politics and won't start paying attention to politics until they turn about 50 years old.
Or until it start impacting them more personally. Politics
Right,
is that
yeah.
it touches every area of your life, whether are politically inclined or not. I think also too, if it's we're approach we, meaning you and I, we approach politics different because we study politics. So I have a very
Mhm.
different viewpoint than my friends. Also, going back to Cori Bush and just seeing other politicians, Hillary Clinton, a lot of them have a very pragmatic or policy like lens when they're campaigning, and that's great politically, maybe once you get in office, but you still have to connect to the people. And I think that's where the
Mhm.
disconnect is a lot of times in politics. It's like, yeah, we may understand politics very differently because we've studied systems, we've seen how this has major impact um, down the line, and looking at it from a very global perspective. But at the end of the day, you do have to come down to who your constituents are, finding out what their needs and campaigning around that. And I don't think that having like a social media campaign, again, it's a tool, but it shouldn't be your the major tool that you use in your election or in your campaigning. It's just, it doesn't work, and I think we're starting to see more and more of that. But I think that I think Democrats really need to change their approach like fast, because it's not working.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we are gonna circle back to that. So I'm gonna hold my tongue
Sorry.
on that portion of this. No, you're fine. You're fine. You didn't jump the gun, but there's another topic coming up that I can speak to that whole point a little bit more eloquently about the dysfunction in the Democratic Party. But yeah, everything Lynn said is true. I think that like I do expect to see Cori Bush on TV somewhere. She'll be working for Vox, Vox, or like TYT or any one of those shows. Maybe she'll do her own YouTube show because I think that's probably where her voice is going to connect the best. Um, like if you're not speaking directly to the constituency in your district, I don't know what to tell you. And the DSA members that won their elections spoke to those people. You know, some of those, because even like Mayor Mamdani, every time the internet, the media tried to play gotcha questions with him, they were always trying to ask him about Israel and Palestine and all that stuff. And he didn't fall for it one time. He was like, I'm trying to get jobs. I'm trying to get grocery stores. I'm trying to do this. I'm not answering that stuff, you know? And I think Cori Bush, every time she was approached with that, she just took the bait. And as a result, she ended up losing. So hopefully a lesson is learned. And if the lesson is not learned, then we will see her on, you know, a TV show soon or just doing something else. But right now, politics is not in her immediate future, at least working in them. So I guess we're done with this topic for now. Well, she might come back up in the DSA conversation, but for right now, we're done with her. So what you got for us, Ray?
All right. Well, as you mentioned, Brother Chris, we will get back to that eternal question: centrist versus progressives. Who really has the heart of the Democrats? What we gonna do, as the Democrats are saying? What are we gonna do? But before we get to that, we do want to touch on the ongoing case of Nolan Wells, who was a teenage boy who went out for the 4th of July with his 4 Caucasian friends in an island right off the mainland of Mississippi. And then he ended up missing. The friends immediately, once they got back upon shore and back on the mainland, immediately got lawyers. One of the gentlemen, the young gentleman, also is a grandson of a state judge who immediately advised him to lawyer up. So then Nolan Wells' body was found. There's a lot of things going on. We don't know necessarily if these 4 men had anything to do with the death. We're getting conflicting stories saying, oh, well, Nolan told us to go back on shore, and he said he was going to get a ride back, even though he rode up to the island with his friends. And then we're also seeing like phone records or his phone being taken away from him. Why would he allow his phone to be taken away from him if he's leaving the group? And then we got some audio with one of the boys on the phone with, I believe, an emergency operator trying to advise them that their boat was sinking, and there was some things going on in the background. So, Brother Chris, first off, we give all of our condolences to the family of Nolan Wells, and we hope that you receive justice. Brother Chris, what do you think of this story, and what do you think of all the updates that were going on thus far with the Nolan Wells case?
All right, so I'll give my thoughts on all this in a second. Lyn, have you been following this whole Nolan Wells thing and the whole Officer Tatum of it all, and just all the just weirdness that's been going on with this?
I've been following it. I wouldn't say closely, but I have been following.
Okay, cool. So, all right. So here's the thing. I will say the first thing I will say is, in a roundabout way, I owe Brandon Tatum a thank you, because I wasn't ever going to touch this case. I was never going to talk about it or write about it or anything. What drew me to this case was him talking about it, right? Because I was going to just let journalists like Don Lemon and Roland Martin and, Joy Reid and those kind of people, Ali Velshi, Like professional journalists that cover this stuff, cover it. But then I saw Officer Tatum like pretending that he was a detective, pretending that he's a journalist, pretending that he's anything but a talking head on the internet. And I think his talking about this case drew attention to it because he was just so quick to say those white boys that Nolan Wells were hanging out with, they're completely innocent and they didn't do anything and all this other stuff. And the more he did that, the more like shady everything sounded with that. So Officer Tatum did draw attention to that case with that. And that in a way, I think he wanted to draw attention because I think he wanted to paint these boys as innocent. One of the things I do for a living outside of teaching in the classroom in journalism is business psychology. A branch of business psychology is crisis management. And what a crisis manager does is when a crisis happens, we tell the people involved in the crisis what to do, how to approach the media, what press statements you should give out, should you even talk to anybody or anything like that. If I were the boys, if I were giving them advice, I would have told them, do not talk to any media, legitimate media or illegitimate media. Do not talk to anyone, because what you did when you talked to Officer Tatum, and I'm calling him officer colloquially. He's not an officer. He's a civilian. He's an internet YouTube dweeb. But what you did when you gave him the interview is you kind of, Officer Tatum, Brandon Tatum, he is not a credible person in the Black community. Maybe to certain people in the conservative Black community, but not to the mainstream Black community. That's not what Officer Tatum is. He is someone that is going to give you a bunch of softball questions. He's not even going to feign to pretend to give you a real interview. So you don't need to be talking to him. If I were these boys, I wouldn't have even talked to Fox News. I would not have talked to anybody. I would have just been like, do not talk to the media. If you had to talk to some right-wing media, it would have been better to talk to like someone on Fox News, maybe Harris Faulkner. She's not credible either, but at least she can kind of give the optic of pretending to do a hard interview with you. Because going on Officer Tatum's show, talk to him, is not doing you any favors. And people, ever since all this stuff start blowing up with this, Nancy Grace, Brandon Tatum went on her show. She made him look like an absolute imbecile. Or I should say he made himself look like an imbecile, and Nancy just kind of stirred the pot. Yeah, it was just a bad look. I think that, again, like you said, Ray, or maybe, I don't know if you said this or not, but we don't know what happened to this kid. We do not know if he was murdered, if it was accidental death. We do not know any of this stuff. So I'm not going to speculate on that part of it. But what I will say is these boys, just from what I've seen out of them, they did not act like they cared about this kid in any capacity. One of those boys said that if Brandon if he'd be ashamed of how his mom is acting. And I was like, dude, shut the hell up, man. Like, are you this kid? You're saying you were friends with this kid and you're saying this stuff about his grieving mom. It was just really, really sad to watch and all that. But I hope that they find justice. We have to wait for autopsy results. We have to wait for toxicology and all that stuff so we can get an idea of what might have happened. But I think it's unfortunate. I do think those boys could be hiding something. But it'd be irresponsible for me to say that they are unless I just have some kind of tangible that they are. But circumstantially, looking at the circumstantial evidence does not paint them in a good light. And I'll say that. Yeah.
Gotcha. What about your thoughts, Sister Lyn, especially with there's been some funny business as far as with the sheriff's department that's in charge, with them immediately saying that foul play was not an issue, even though the autopsy had not come out yet. And now I believe Colin Kaepernick is helping out the Wells family with having an independent autopsy. So what do you make of all the events coming out of this ongoing Nolan Wells case?
I definitely feel the same way as Chris. I think it, like he said, it'll be very irresponsible of me to say this is what with a definitive kind of perspective that this is what happened. I don't know. None of us really know. That's why the whole Brandon Tatum thing is very interesting, because he said with such conviction. But I don't know. What I want is for there to be justice for this young man. A lot of the things that have come forth in this case or in the investigation has been very interesting. I think for there to be this missing person and then for you to then lawyer up, it's just very, very weird to me. So all we can do right now is look at behavior, and the behavior is just it's questionable. And so that's where I am in my opinion of all of this. I think it is there's a lot of missing information here. Things are not adding up. As they say, the math isn't mapping on this. I think for me, I'm just keeping a close ear and eye on what's going on now moving forward. I mean, I've been, I've been in the loop of this, but I haven't followed it closely as much, but I do know what's going on. And I do think that second or that other autopsy is very much important. So for me, I just really want the family to have justice. It's just a really unfortunate situation. I know there's other conversations that are happening on social media. I won't really talk too much about that, but there's some other conversations coming up surrounding this whole thing around Nolan Wells that a lot of Black people have been kind of pushing some narratives around that.
Yeah, and I've heard that too. Like, because they're saying don't you shouldn't have your kids, Black kids shouldn't be hanging out with white boys by themselves and all that. I went to high school with mostly white people, and I've gone on hunting trips with these cats, and I didn't end up not coming home alive. So I can't. I don't think. I think if that was in their heart, that was in their heart. But I don't think that has anything to do with how people operate. Because I've gone fishing with white people. I've gone hunting with white people. I've done archery with them, and me being the only Black person there, and I came home alive. So I don't want to stereotype in that way, because I've seen a lot of people do that. Yeah, the lawyering up thing is interesting, because here's the thing. I understand why you would lawyer up instantly, especially if people are starting to point the finger at you. You definitely want to lawyer up, but part of lawyering up is listening to your lawyers and I just don't know if your lawyers are telling you to do a lot of the stupid stuff I've seen these kids do. Because you really shouldn't be talking to any media at all. I don't care if it's legitimate media, illegitimate media. You should not be talking to the media. You should, everything should be under wraps with you. And that's how it should be. Just these statements seen from these kids. Actually, I saw for one of the boys, they were threatening lawsuits against media people. I don't know what that's gonna accomplish, because a media person can have an opinion. You can't sue me for my opinion and win. You can try to do that. I haven't seen too many media people say, oh, these boys are guilty. I'm talking about legitimate media, not like there's probably been people on TikTok and social media saying these boys are guilty. I haven't said that. I don't know what has happened with them. But I know you can't. Yeah.
No, I agree with that, but I do still feel like the whole lawyering up thing is very suspect. You haven't been charged with anything.
It is.
Why are you?
Yeah.
Why are you lawyering up? There right now. This is more an investigation period right now. So the fact that was your number one thing to do, I'm sorry, I'm going to stand on my opinion on that. To me, that's very suspect. You just haven't been charged with anything.
It's extremely suspect. What I will say about it, because I'm not going to defend that. What I will say about it is, at least one of those kids' parents was like a judge or adjacent to a legal officer or something like that, and they probably got wind of it. And because I think they're the ones that hired the lawyer. It's gonna come across as suspect. It is, because that's just how it looks when you hire a lawyer. Especially like Lynn said, you haven't been charged with anything. Go ahead.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with talking to a lawyer following the incident, but hiring a lawyer for what? What are you hiring the lawyer for? To me, kind of leans into you looking guilty. I mean, but again, we can't say that because we don't know that to be true. But I just think that kind of taking this preemptive stance or approach, was, preliminary preemptive approach was very interesting to me. And for me, it just kind of really left a bad taste in my mouth. So.
Look, I can say how they looked, and look guilty is I think that's an appropriate thing to say. No one's saying that they are guilty, but there are certain optical things that you do with that guilty people do that what these kids are doing could be adjacent to that. You got to be. And Brandon Tatum is dancing very close to the sun too, because you do not know anything. You are just like every one of us. And if you say the wrong thing, this can sink your career. Whatever you do on the internet, your bullshit career, you could get sued and lose a lot of money for this. Especially if you say wrong thing. Yeah.
I mean, he said that they did not kill him, or maybe I didn't hear that correctly, but
I did. I don't know if he said that verbatim. I think he said something close to that. If he said that verbatim, he's an idiot, because you do not know that. But the thing with it, when you're dealing with these kind of cases, so if someone is dead already, you can say anything about that dead person and not worry about getting sued for that, because once somebody is dead, there's no reputation to protect. That's how the law looks at it, right? But what you do have, and this is going to run out, but I'm going to talk a little bit for a second. There's nothing to protect there as far as belief from the for the dead person. But what you can do though is you can tamper with evidence. What you could do is you could draw attention to this mother and this father that they not want. That's what Alex Jones got sued for when he lost that case to the Sandy Park kids. Those kids, it wasn't the stuff that Jones was saying about those kids. He called them crisis actors. What he got sued for and lost was the attention that he brought to the parents and the harassment that they suffered for as a result. And that's what kind of brought down his InfoWars empire, was being stupid like that. So all I can say, Brandon Tatum, keep being stupid, keep being an idiot, keep doing this stuff, man, because your 15 minutes. This is right now as we are doing this show. This is the most famous Officer Tatum will ever be. This is the height of his fame. There is nowhere to go but down from him for him. Mm-hmm. And when these MAGAs turn on your black ass, I will be the first person laughing in the front row because you're an idiot. And that's pretty much it. You're an idiot. You're a sellout. I don't use the COON word, but I'm not going to disagree with people that say that about you, because you have shown your fucking true colors. You are a disgusting human being. You are a sellout. You are a victim of audience capture. You are performing for an audience of puppeteers. You're Bojangles dancing for them, and you shouldn't be doing that. You are a disgusting, horrible human being. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that piece of shit. So we can.
Well, I guess it's safe to say that Chef Ken is closer to forgiveness in your eyes than Brother Tatum.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Chef Ken. If I see you outside in this hot day like it is today in LA, I might offer you a glass of unpoisoned lemonade, something.
With ice or without ice?
Officer Tatum, I can't do that. This was an officer in Tucson. He acted like he was some kind of beat cop in a big city. I'm thinking this dude, DC, LA, Miami, New York. You are a beat cop in fucking Tucson. I've been to Tucson more times I can count. Ain't shit going on in Tucson, man. All right. Well, let's move on, man, because
I would say we just honor Nolan Wells. Like, I think everyone's approach should be to honor him, his life. Yeah.
Honor Nolan Wells, honor his parents too. Honor those that are grieving realistically, the people that are suffering, the people that have lost this kid, that's not coming back, unfortunately. And I think his parents might have, I don't know if they have a GoFundMe or anything like that. If we find anything, we could put it in the YouTube description of the video. But yeah, honor Nolan Wells, man, and don't give a lot of, because I hopefully I don't have to talk about Officer Tatum again on this platform. But yeah, honor Nolan Wells. That's what you got to do.
Indeed. Honor Nolan Wells. All right, and with that, we are shifting into our final topic on the pilot episode of the Thinking Class. All right. So hopefully y'all not falling asleep back there. I see you up there on the top balcony in the lecture room. Hey, wake up. We almost done. All right. So with that, let's go into our final topic. So we talked about one progressive candidate who did not fare so well. But as you mentioned, Brother Chris, there are plenty of progressive candidates that are faring well when it comes to the primaries going into the midterm elections coming up this fall. One being Abdul El Sayed, who defeated his opponent, his Democratic opponent. And we mentioned that AIPAC money or big money from big political action committees that are coming from, or pro-Israel rather, that even though you're guaranteed that money doesn't mean you're guaranteed to win. Well, El Sayed mentioned that he was out fundraised 11-1 against his opponent,
Mhm.
but still managed to get the victory. So I guess we could stick with El Sayed for now, and then branch off to the more overarching theme of centrist versus progressive. But with El Sayed not exactly being a quote unquote democratic socialist, but being a part of the far progressive end of the Democratic Party. Uh, what did you think? Why do you think he won that primary, and what do you think it'll take for him to win the general election for that Senate seat in Michigan come November?
All right, so Abdul is an interesting candidate. I think he is. I think first of all, what I want to say is the race he ran against. Do you remember what his opponent's name was? I'm horrible
I'm
with
pulling it
names,
up
so
now.
yeah. But he ran a candidate that spoke to issues that affected the people of his state. Um, Abdul
Haley
is a person.
Haley
What's her name?
Stevens. Haley
Haley
Stevens.
Stevens. Yeah. So yeah. So and shout out to Haley Stevens too. I actually liked her a lot. He ran a campaign where he talked to issues. He talked about employment. He spoke well to Black people. He talked about the issues. He talked about the industries that are out of work. He talked a little the Israel Gaza stuff, but that wasn't like the centerpiece of his campaign. He spoke to working class, the people in Michigan, and I think that's why he won. Um, I think like there's a lot of paranoia around his victory that I do not think is necessary because again, he is one candidate that won election, and he did it the fair way. He ran a race that related to the people in his district. He barely won. It wasn't like it was a landslide victory. The race didn't call for him until I want to say like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So it wasn't like he ran away with this. You feel me? He ran and he won. He barely won, but he won. So I think when a Democrat wins a race, the party needs to rally around the winner. Jamie Harrison's been doing that to his credit, but you have these guys like what's his name, James Carville, and people like that who have a problem with this kid winning and saying like calling and saying like all this ridiculous stuff about leaving the party and all of that. When I hear people say that, I question how much they really cared about democratic issues in the first place. Because when people win elections fair and square, they win the election fair and square. That does not mean that the party is turning into one thing or the next. Like Lynn said earlier in the show, Democrats have to figure this crap out, man. They have to, because you can't be having these petty arguments. I consider myself on the more progressive end of the Democratic spectrum of the political bell curve. I'm on the more progressive end, but I'm also a very pragmatic person as well. I understand that I'm not going to be able to get everything I want. What I fight for are the candidates that are going to get me closer to getting what I want. Vote MAGA cannot ever be a realistic option. If you call yourself a liberal, how can you sit there and say, because when you say I'm leaving the Democratic Party, what it sounds like to me is you're entertaining voting for an idiot like J.D. Vance or a Tucker Carlson or somebody like that. Like, I don't always agree with the DSA. I've written articles about how ridiculous some of them sound. That Romer lady, what's her name? Is it Megan Romer or whatever her name is? I heard an interview with her on Fox News, and she sounded absolutely ridiculous. They need to get a better spokesperson. I'll say that about the DSA, because that lady ain't it. You got to get somebody that knows how to talk, that knows how to talk to media. That's not going to sit there and say, we're going to tax the hell out of billionaires, and that's your answer to the question. Taxing the hell out of billionaires does not answer how you're going to fix the wealth gap. Because even saying how you're going to tax the hell out of billionaires. What are you going to do, lady, is what I want to know. But yeah, I think that, like I said, I got no problems with Abdul's side of Abdul. The only issue I did have with him was back in, I want to say 2024, when Joe Biden was running, and when Joe Biden was giving the money to Israel. He was a part of the uncommitted movement, where they were not, they were saying they're not going to vote, or they're not committed for Joe Biden, which I understand on a meta level, but at the end of the day, you still only have two choices, and you have to vote you have to vote for one of these people, and they did not, and you can't, and voting for Trump was not an option, in my opinion. But what he did, though, when Joe Biden opted out, what Abdul did that was smart was he El Said, what he did that was smart was he immediately got on board with Kamala Harris. He immediately endorsed her and got behind her, right? We can't have people uncommitted. We can't have that. So yeah, he spoke to that, but he wasn't on that wagon for long, because when Kamala Harris was running, he did say he was going to vote for her. But as far as like the James Carvilles of the world, the Bill Maher's, the Roland Martin didn't say this, but what's his name? Stephen A. Smith people, like, you have to understand that you have to compromise if you're going to be in politics. Compromising is a part of the game. Compromise is not something we get to escape. If you do not like Abdul El Said, if you don't like him, bring constituents over to him and explain what you don't like about him. But don't sit there and say, oh, I'm not going to vote for him, or I'm leaving the Democratic Party, and give Republicans talking points that they didn't earn or deserve, you know? But yeah, the Democrats are going to have to figure this out. I say this as a Democrat. We're going to have to figure this out in 2026 and again in 2028, because we need this kind of disarray in the party. If we're trying to get rid of MAGA and all of the stickiness of MAGA, all of the residual debris of MAGA, we have to start getting in line and, you know, making sure we don't throw people under the bus unless they absolutely deserve it.
Gotcha.
That's my thoughts.
All right. Well, how about you, Sister Lyn? What do you think of El Sayed's win in Michigan? And do you feel that this may be a sign of things to come? We've seen with the aforementioned Zohran Mamdani up in New York winning the mayoral seat, and also all the things that he's been doing thus far in his administration. Brother Chris, you mentioned earlier that it's more of what are the things you're putting in place for the constituents rather than what are you doing outside to reach people outside of your community. So how can Democrats turn this Michigan? Well, first off, do you feel as though El Sayed can win the Senate seat in November, Sister Lyn? And how can the Democrats turn that into a shift for the party come the rest of the country in the midterms?
I think it's highly likely that he'll win. I mean, we don't know, but I feel like it's a possibility. I think it would be a good shift for the party, but like I said earlier, the Democrats, they gotta get it together. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I feel like I'm kind of beating the dead horse with that, but it's just a fact. If the Democrats have to get it together. I don't know what else to say other than that.
Well, let me pick your brain. Let me push back a little bit. How do the Democrats get it together, Sister Lyn? Because we saw, at least when it came to the Texas Democratic Senate seat between James Tallarico and our good sister Jasmine Crockett, where as though she was more on the far left as far as progressive goes. James Tallarico was more of the centrist side. He was able to get the win, but now people were calling and saying, hey, can you help us, Jasmine? Can you help us push James Tallarico and all this stuff? So how do the Democrats get it together? Does it mean we need to do a full shift one way or the other? Does it mean, like we were saying, it depends on the communities that we're serving,
Yes.
which way we approach it? Like, how do they get it together, Sister Lyn? Since you said they just got to get it together.
They do just have to get it together. I think the thing is, I think it depends on where the candidate is. I don't know that a full shift, a progressive shift, I don't know that that's a reasonable thing to do everywhere. I think you have to be mindful of your region. Some places you can get that off. Right. But other places, that's not going to work. They're a little more traditional in their political views and more probably centered, Democratic centered. Whereas some of us are more progressive. In a state like California, that may work, in a place like New York, that may work. These are very progressive states. But I think in other places like Texas, that probably is not going to work. So I think Democrats have to be mindful of that as well. Going back to what are you campaigning? Like, who are your audience? You have to think again, very regionally instead of very globally in some of these elections. And I think that is part of what is kind of tripping people up. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Like, because my whole thing too, because I had endorsed Jasmine Crockett when she was running for office. I wanted her to win. When she didn't win, I was upset. I was sad. But I never told anybody, hold your vote. When Tallarico won, because what you're supposed to do working in politics, and Lyn, we came up together at Dominguez Hills. Like you could lament and be sad that the person that you voted for primary didn't win. You are entitled to that. Right. But once those tears dry up and stuff, you got to get behind the person that won. Tallarico won. You have to vote for this dude. That's what you got to do. I would never, ever, 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 especially in this political climate, say do not vote for the Democrat. I would just not do that. That is unwise. Like Lyn said, like living in the greater Los Angeles area, what you find out is that there are different types of people. If I drive up the I-90, and I'm in conservative Orange County where people think differently. I'm in the neighborhoods where I see nothing but American flags, and when I'm in a neighborhood where I see nothing but American flags, I think a lot of times that's not a neighborhood I'm supposed to be in, because they're not wearing American flags in the 4th of July kind of way. They're wearing these American flags to tell you that this is the America that they own. So I don't feel comfortable in those places, right? I don't have anything against the American flag. It's just when I'm around that ilk, I know what's up.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that like a person like a James Talrico is going to deal with. Someone like an Abdul is going to deal with as well. I mean, he's in a state where he has to speak to all of his constituents. I thought he did a very good job of that on the campaign trail. I don't think he was only speaking to Palestinians or only to Jewish people or only to white people or only to black people. He spoke to everybody. He was trying to get everybody's vote, and that's what you're supposed to do. As for the other members of the DSA as a whole, I've been a Democrat for a long time now. There is not a wing of the Democratic Party that doesn't get on my nerves. There are people in every single I could think of. There's people in the Congressional Black Caucus that get on my nerves. There are progressive Democrats that get on my nerves. There are center Democrats that get on my nerves. There are uber progressive. I could find a person in every wing of the Democratic Party that absolutely fucking irritates me, where I feel the wrinkles come on my skin, where I feel the hairs on my head turning gray listening to these idiots. There's everybody like that in the Democratic Party. We still have to work together, you know?
Right.
When I heard that DSA lady on Fox News give that interview, my Lord, I don't know if you could play a clip of that, Ray. Maybe the Fox News people will flag us, so don't play the clip. But this woman sounded ridiculously dumb, man. And you're not winning races doing that. You're not winning races everywhere doing that. Maybe you could win a race in a city or a state where people are in favor of abolishing police departments. I just don't know too many districts that feel like that. I think people believe that there needs to be like reform in these parties, like there needs to be made over. Like Agreed. Even with the defund the police movement, I didn't necessarily mind it, but I know how people are when they hear the word defund. So just as a general rule, maybe come up with another word that's not defund, and so we can move the fuck on and talk about the issues and get to a point of resolution. But to get mad at people who won elections fairly, like, because I know that one of the things that got James Carville's panties in a bunch was that everybody that Mayor Mamdani endorsed in New York won their primary. And he was mad at that. And he said, oh, I can't have socialists taking over the Democratic Party. If you can't have socialists taking over the Democratic Party, then try to get people that aren't socialists to run races and win, you know? Because what Democrats do when they... Go ahead.
No. Here's the problem that I have, I guess, now with politics. It's just so ego focused. What about the people? I feel like a lot of this is moving far away from the constituents and the people and their needs, and it's focused on what the individual thinks the people need. Like, go back into the communities and find out what people need. And I think that's the issue now. And that's why, to some degree, I've really become kind of turned off, because it's like, that's what you think it is. that's not necessarily what's going on. Like, I mean, we can look at a more immediate kind of social political issue right now in LA, for example, around homelessness. There's been so many narratives built on that, when it's like, are you really going into the community to find out who's homeless and what led to homelessness? It's not just addiction and mental health issues. It's like, it's everyday people losing their livelihood, their jobs. I mean, unemployment is up. Like, there's so many things. And I feel like that's the part in politics, particularly with the Democratic Party, where it's just so ego focused. I don't give a damn what you think as a politician. I want you to come into the community and talk to me and find out what's really going on, because I'm impacted by this and it can inform your policy, but I don't think anyone is listening to the people anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I don't really think the Democratic Party ever did a great job of listening to people, because when Joe Biden had that horrible debate against Kamala Harris, the Democratic Party did not ask working class people what they thought Joe Biden should do, or what they thought the Democratic Party should. Yeah, they did not talk.
There's so many populations that they have ignored for years and years and years. And guess what happens when you ignore those pockets of populations? They're going to take their asses over there and vote for Trump and MAGA. And that's how you end up seeing this.
And the reason for that too is what happens in politics is people like being talked to, even if you're lying and saying nonsense and stuff like that. That's going to appeal to their senses more than facts. If you don't explain the facts to them in a way that they can understand it. Donald Trump, it's easy to be Donald Trump because Donald Trump can say a bunch of nonsense and people will gravitate towards that. And then people end up being like Chef Ken and wondering why their lives are coming apart, unraveling at the seams. But yeah, that is what happens when you are not talking to people and meeting them where they are. And they will go to, they will find MAGA. They will find somebody that's telling them good stuff. So what you have, because Democrats have the tough task of telling people the truth, but telling people the truth in a way that is palatable for them, and that's going to speak to things that you can actually do for them, you know. And I just think they haven't done that. I don't think the Democratic Party with Joe Biden, they didn't do a good job speaking to Democrats. They definitely didn't talk to Black men, Black women. They didn't consent with anybody. They had George Clooney write an op-ed for the New York Times and all this other crap. And just, you know, Joe Biden dropped out, and Kamala Harris, they tried to run her in 107 days and she lost, and everybody's been in disarray after that. And
my bad, Sister Lynn. We'll let this be the last word. We'll let you have the last word. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that last election, the whole Kamala Harris thing, it could have been better. You know, it just really felt like a shit show.
It was.
And
I don't think the Democrats ever really got behind her either, to be honest.
That too. And also, I mean, I don't think that most of us didn't even know what she was campaigning for. So we was like, what is the campaign? Like, what are your issues? Your topics, I think, and I'll say this, and I'll wrap it up. I think the Democrats need a different approach because we're not Trump. That's not going to work.
Yeah. That has never worked either.
Yeah,
I think it worked in 2020 because people just wanted things to go back to normal. We were in the middle of a pandemic. But you can't keep going back to the same well every time. That's been the problem with Trump, is he keeps going back to the same well. It'll work every once in a while. It won't work every time. That's why I think we are going to take the House back. Don't know the Senate. But for now, we will table this discussion and just chill until the next time. So, Ray, if you can wrap us up, and then we will sign off.
No problem, no problem. Well, one last thing that I do have in mind before y'all leave, before y'all get out y'all seats, homework. What is one bit of homework that you want to disperse to the public after this mighty fine first lesson, Dr. Ealy? What's one piece of homework you want the people to do?
Well, one thing I'd say to do is just pay attention to what's going on in your local races. If you live in a swing, I have the privilege of living in Los Angeles. So I know a nut job is not going to be put on the school board out here or anything like that. But if you live in a district, like if you're in Florida or anything like that, pay attention to who's being elected to school board, your judges, who's running for judges. Even in LA, you need to pay attention to judges. Pay attention to those little races, local congressmen, local senators. Pay attention to that because it's going to mean a lot come November. That's what I advise everybody to do.
All right, Sister Lyn, what's your piece of homework out there for?
Just an extension of that. Not only pay attention, but also do your research. Do not rely on social media as your primary source. It may be a good starting point, but I do think that people owe it to themselves to really do their research, especially around when these elections come, so that you can find who you best align with as far as these candidates.
Indeed. And my piece of homework, go ahead and pull up, if you can, folks, go ahead and pull up that Jubilee surrounded between 20 black folks versus Officer Tatum.
Yeah.
Usually when you have one of those surrounded, that one person can fend for themselves, like Mehdi Hassan against all of those folks. He was schooling those folks, but in the case of Officer Tatum, I think I heard off in the distance.
Stop! He's already dead.
He didn't even read. He didn't even read the book that he was trying to cite. I think it was Booker T. Washington's book. And he didn't even read the book. And one of the college students got him on that. Like it was a very, very pathetic surrounding.
Yeah, it was all a part of his theology, Brother Chris. All a part of the theology.
Oh yeah. Why did we not bring that up too? He said, "In my theology, I believe theology is your religious beliefs. Theology is not." I think he meant to say methodology or ideology or something like that.
Ideology, that's what I do.
Theology is about your religion. The guy's an idiot, man. Anyway, so one of the things I wanted to say before we signed off. So right now we are experimenting with these tape recorded episodes in case there's any faux pas that come up. Like we had a couple today that we could edit out. But in the future, we will do live shows. But we're just going to see where the audience is. And maybe we'll come up with an email address to where you can ask us questions that we'll answer on next week's episode or the next time we do episode. I don't know how often we're going to do these. We're going to be doing a bunch of these in the fall because it's an election season. So I'll probably be available every week, but I don't know what Ray's schedule is going to be like. So look at every week or every other week or once, whatever the schedule permits, we'll do something like that. But thank you for joining us on this inaugural episode. Lyn, thank you for giving us your time on such a short notice, because I know you were just getting back. I think I need to buy like do you sell Roth IRAs or anything like that?
Do I?
Yeah, do you? Like
No.
you sell. Okay, I'm okay. So maybe that was someone else. I forgot you sell something. There's something that I need to buy from you. I just forgot what it was. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Well, I guess we can use this time. If there's anything for you to promote, Sister Lyn, if you are selling something and Dr. Ealy wants to buy, is there anything, any way that the good people can reach you, or you just gonna mind your business? Just find you on the internet.
In this season, minding my business.
All right.
Okay, and then you could catch. Well, you go next, Ray, and then I'll close out with my stuff.
Well, no problem. You could find me right here on Nefarious Media Network. We do have a lot of sports-related content on this show, but as Brother Ealy did mention, we do want to kick off this very politics-heavy arm of Nefarious Media Network, especially with him being the expert, him being the academic. But if you want a little bit more lighter side of us here in Nefarious Media Network, you can follow us on all of our social media platforms, be it on Twitter X, Facebook, YouTube. And if you're feeling also generous, also kind, for the minimum, the low price of $3 per month can get you on patreon.com/Nefarious Media Network, where we have over 300 plus hours of good audio content in store for you all. But yes, we do have a variety of programs over here, be it the Kings of Sport, the Mothership, where we deal with all the mainstream sports, whether it be our Ring Theory, where we deal primarily with professional wrestling, or whether it be at Styles Break Fights, where we definitely tackle in all of the issues going on with mixed martial arts with some politics sprinkled in. So you can find us on all of those different shows on all of the platforms that I mentioned before. So with that, go ahead and take us out, Brother Chris.
Yeah. You can catch me on Post. Go to my Substack. I'm at over 420 paid subscribers right now, and then over like approaching 4,000 total subscribers. So it's free to sign up. If you become a paid member, you get premium articles from me. And it's $50 a year, or I want to say $5 a month to join. So get you a yearly plan if you can afford it. But no pressure. If you can't afford it, just get you a free plan, share it with people. And yeah, so again, thank you, Lyn. And class is out of session, y'all. Peace.